It's been a tough year for green energy, despite even financing and support from the U.S. government. The trade has run aground. Let's talk about whether or not it can get back on its feet, alongside perhaps the broad tech market. Joining us from Shelton Capital Management, Dr. Bruce Kahn is a senior portfolio manager. Joining us from Shelton, NEXTX, the green energy fund. Bruce, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Oliver. It's a pleasure.
Okay, so how does this group get back on its feet? Because it's been a real rough year, and there's some rumblings of hope here in this market the last month, but the buyers have not come for this sector. They've come from old industrial plays, Caterpillar, and themes that are outside some of this futuristic growth trade. What's going on?
Oliver, I think you hit the nail right on the head there, which is what is going on is a large-scale industrial transformation. First, if you look at the number of decarbonization targets announced by major industrials, you have a whole sector who is saying, we're going to be low carbon, if not zero carbon. And so, well, how does that happen? Well, it happens throughout the value chain, starting with, firms that make silicon semiconductors that go into solar panels. Then it goes into companies that manufacture solar panels and design systems. And then it makes those companies like, First Solar and Sunrun and SunPower, both utility and residential scale. And then you have the project developers like Brookfield Energy Partners and Hannon Armstrong, who are actually financing and deploying all this low carbon energy that is being gobbled up, if you will, by all kinds of industrial powers out there that are not just making energy, they're making everything in our entire economy with green energy.
I love that you bring up Hannon Armstrong. We have their team on just about every quarter over the last year, and they seem so busy, right? And they've got so many different places in the energy market that they're exposed to. But in this market right now, the real only performers have been pure solar panel plays almost. Like I look at just a pure solar panel ETF, it's up 2.5% on the year. Why is that particular sector getting like its own outperformance relative to cars, real estate, and like anything else in the green category? Why is that the panels are in a world of their own?
Well, it's because of the cost margins. A lot of the panels coming out of the Far East are just made much less expensively. That is changing in that with the Inflation Reduction Act here in the United States, manufacturing of componentry is being localized. So those costs are were pretty high over the past decade, but that's changing now with the tax credits that the U.S. government has basically put into place. That's kind of almost an infinite tax credit. As long as we're manufacturing and building solar components, not just solar, wind, also net energy metering, behind the meter, all those kind of componentry that's going into making our economy more energy efficient is all being domesticated. So those costs the differentials in cost from the Far East to here is going to be made up by the U.S. government in tax credits. So it's not a direct outlay. And so those cost pressures have really been the difference in why the panels were getting good margins from the Far East. But that is changing, and we will see a rotation there.
Okay.
The other thing we have to keep in mind. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Oliver.
no, just love that detail. Go ahead. Please finish the thought.
The other thing we have to keep in mind is it's this is a whole cloth transformation of our economy. It's not just what the utilities are going to use for generating energy. With the advent of further transparency and clarity around how companies are emitting carbon emissions, that Scope 3 emissions and Scope 2 emissions, where do you get your energy and where does it go in your value chain and where's it coming from in your value chain? This is all becoming much more transparent with new regulations. And that's going to help investors be able to understand the difference between the best-in-class performer on reducing their emissions, and then how are they doing that, where in their value chain. That is what is so important about following the industrial transformation process that that NEXTX, our Next Economy Fund at Shelton, is pursuing.
And so I guess you'd probably argue, Bruce, then that the impact, the long-range impact of the Inflation Reduction Act and those particular tax credit programs have not yet been appreciated by the market, even though they might be kind of showing up in the preference for some of the solar panel stuff at this juncture.
That's correct. We're going to continue to see the deployment and clarification from the U.S. Treasury as to where a lot of the dollars are going to sit. But what we do know is that these dollars are earmarked for domestic production of componentry, not just of solar, but of home and heating systems, home construction materials, wind technology as well. But also, this could also be potentially really interesting for the agribusiness sector, because much of the earmarked dollars are for the rural economy, and much of that technology is also being deployed across the agribusiness sector. So I think that's a sector we want to keep an eye on as well.
Okay. Bruce, the China connection I want to ask you about this morning, just given the focus that we've been discussing from a broad macro level on China. The Jinko Solar, the top holding that I see according to the latest report from Morningstar on your fund, which, by the way, has a 5-star rating on NEXTX. Taiwan Simi, of course, is a spot where investors are constantly kind of lingering nervousness around what that role is going to be on kind of the global stage. How does China's role factor into this? And is that a risk point? Do you feel comfortable with the amount of tech that we buy from China on the green energy side?
Well, I think the political and economic reality of global international affairs is going to play out in the way that the U.S. government has said, hey, we're gonna compete now for these technologies, not only in solar and panel manufacturing, but also in the hydrogen electrolyzer businesses. And so while we have holdings and partnerships with Chinese companies, they're all looking to build manufacturing facilities in the U.S. And so that partnership is going to be great for both the NEXTX economy, where we invest in companies who manufacture these technologies, but also for the U.S. economy as well, because it's going to bring jobs. It's going to bring domesticated manufacturing, and that is going to boost our own GDP relative to these other countries' products and services that they've been selling into our markets. The EU also is also looking at building a kind of trading bloc and domesticating their own manufacturing. So we have to watch as the kind of next economy 2.0 is evolving to become much more dispersed. It used to be centralized in Europe, then it dispersed across to the U.S. and to Asia. Now it's kind of decentralizing again and becoming much more localized.
Fascinating stuff, and like the perspective. Let's keep in touch and continue the conversation. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us, Oliver. Have a great day.
Sure thing. Dr. Bruce Kahn, Senior Portfolio Manager at NEXTX, the fund from Shelton Capital Management.